that are with me in the studio this morning. Two of the members of the board of directors of Columbia Savings and Loan Association. Please welcome Steve Moore and Dr. Mose Fuller to the show this morning.
Attorney Core, how you doing today?
Doing A-okay.
That's all right with me.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And Doc Fuller?
How you doing this morning, Tony Coro?
Yes. So I have this habit of shortening things, so I always call you Doc or Doc Fuller. So hopefully that's all right.
Pastor, whatever.
Yes, Pastor, Reverend Pastor, Doctor.
Yep.
There's so many titles there, but I shorten it and I always say Doc.
Yep, that's what you do.
Yeah, so I know I'm talking to you. So guys, let me start first with you, Dr. Fuller. Tell us a little bit about your background and how it is you came to be on the board of directors for Columbia Savings and Loan Association.
Well, I started my church in 1993. And we was in existence for a couple of years, and we was at the point where we wanted to purchase a building, and we had the funds, but it was finding the right institution, the right bank that would let us do that. We only 2 years old. So it so happened that the Lord worked it out, that the building that we bought, amen, was Columbia had financed it. And so we went to Columbia Savings. At that time, George Gary was president. So we went there with 2 years in existence. Say, look, man, we found this building. We want to buy it. Will you finance it? We had the money, and he did that. And so that was in 95.
And where is that building?
It's right up the street here, Titonia and Nash, 3701 North Titonia.
And that's the same building that you're still in today?
Same building we're in right now, St. Timothy Community Baptist Church.
Okay.
And Columbia Savings and Loan financed us. They took a chance on us, and since then, all of my accounts most of the accounts that I have as it relates to banking is at Columbia Savings and Loan, because as a pastor in this community, and as far as I'm concerned, they took a chance with me. They trusted in me, so I stayed with them, been with them. Great institution, great bank, and I tell anyone that. Not because I heard about it, but because I had experience with the bank. And that's a significant thing. So then in 2000, I've been now since 95 and all the way up to 2008, 2018 or 2019, I think it was 2019, the president of the bank, George Gary, said, Pastor Fuller, I want you to be on the board. And I really had to think about that. And I thought about it for a while. I think it was he hadn't asked me in 2018, and probably I didn't make up my mind to 2018. And so I finally, completed all the paperwork they wanted you to complete, all the background stuff. And I've been a part of the board since 2019, and it's been a great work because I understand, Attorney Akora, about why the bank was started, the significance of the bank in the community, and what it brings to the community, especially as it relates to people that can't access capital.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's why.
We're going to talk more about that. Normally, I was telling you guys before we came on the air, I always have an outline that I prepare. So there's all these different points that I want to raise. And somehow I walked out and left that today. But hopefully I know the story well enough, but if I get anything wrong, I know I can count on you with historical details, because we are going to circle back. We are going to talk about who started this bank, why this bank was started, why this mission bank is important more than ever 100 years later. But before we do, I would like an opportunity for Steve Moore, Director Moore, to tell us a little bit about himself. Steve, give us some of your background and then talk about how you became a part of the board of directors for Columbia.
Yeah, it's actually pretty funny, given my background is I literally grew up about 3 blocks from here, 22nd and Melvina. So I've been 414 all my life, born and raised in the city of Milwaukee. My background is in finance and compliance. So, I graduated University of Wisconsin, decided to stay in Madison. So I've lived there pretty much my entire adult life. I mean, in finance, I've done everything from personal banking to regulation of a bank, multinational corporations. So I pretty much have seen it all on that front, which then introduced me around 2007, 2008. Ran into young Ernest Jones back then. And that's kind of when that started, of just understanding a little bit more about what he was about. And me and him met eye to eye on a lot of things. I believe it was 2019, 2020. We kind of first had a brief conversation about it, but it wasn't until 21, I believe, or 22 is when we got serious about, you should really consider joining the board because of the financial background to, the things we go through and how we fight certain fights.
And your regulatory background.
Absolutely.
Important.
Yeah, I think it's critical, especially from a lot of the projects that we would like to do at the bank. Mm-hmm. There's a long laundry list of items that we would really love to get to so we can share, what we've been working on, what we've been doing, but we have to do things the right way. That's right. For me, education has always been something that kind of came pretty easily just because of my family's background. I always joke, say I'm, Cal's son and Darlene's baby, because education was pushed on me from a very early age. Not able to get away with shortcuts or anything like that. So, I mean, if you ever met my dad, I'm just the bigger version of him.
I was going to say, I doubt you're the miniature version of anything. Were you about 6'2", 6'3"?
Yeah.
Steve? I know you're up there.
Yeah. So education was always pushed.
Steve, where'd you go to high school? I know you grew up around here, but where did you go to school?
I went to Wisconsin Lutheran.
Okay.
So it's over in basically Wauwatosa. Mm-hmm. My grade school, again, two blocks from here, Saloa. It's a small little school, but I think they had a tremendous education program of just educating us and showing us different things. We knew about African-American leaders. We were taught that from preschool. I have friends from preschool I still talk to this day because we're so tight-knit as a group. So, I think all of that kind of formed me to become who I am now.
Right. No, that's good. And I'm excited to hear that. I'm always talking about the different people, especially with the entrepreneur series that I've been doing and the homegrown talent that, we've managed to retain. Even though you don't live in Milwaukee right now, you are contributing to Milwaukee by your role as a director on the board for Columbia Savings and Loan.
It's extremely important that people understand the story and why we do what we do and why we fight so hard for it. I have a personal connection to the bank, given my grandparents I believe on both sides have been a part of Columbia for, since the 60s.
Wow. Now hold on, Steve, because 50s, I didn't even know that.
I believe it actually goes earlier than the 60s. I believe it goes back to the 50s of, my grandfather opening a bank and keeping his money there until he moved back down to Mississippi.
Okay.
That wasn't until the 90s. So, he'd had his money there for decades.
Okay.
And I hadn't even known that. I hadn't known that either until speaking to my mother about it. And she reminded me, your grandfather has had dealings with that bank for a long time.
Wow. Okay. And other members of your family as well?
Yes. It's on both sides. Again, that's why it's just so interesting that it's almost a full circle of coming back to not only just being involved with the bank, but being involved in a director level where, we've made a lot of tough decisions recently, and it's not been easy, but we've all made sacrifices to get to where we are right now.
Right.
So I think that's very important for everyone to remember, is that, when it comes to certain issues, we had to sit down and we've had those conversations, all of us have, and it's not easy, but it's all for the betterment of the bank.
Right.
That's the number one thing. I will protect the bank over and above anything else personal, regarding myself.
Well, that's right, because the bank is its own entity.
Yep.
It's not any one person. It's bigger than all of us. So each of us is pouring in and bringing our respective expertise and knowledge and background to bear in the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis in order to see this bank continue for another 100 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Dr. Fuller, what do you want to say about that?
That's why, since being on the board, I see the important work that we do. And it's done for, the uplift of the community. When you look at the historical perspective of why the bank was started.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
And it's because basically they, black folks in the city of Milwaukee couldn't access capital from other banks.
Right.
And so you had these two visionaries, if you will, that said, look, we got to do something about that.
Right.
And they started the bank up against all kinds of opposition to get this thing going because you know why? They wanted to help people. And as the Brother Moore was saying, that's what we're doing now, man. We're going through stuff. Why are you going through it? Because we want to help people. Mm-hmm. We want to help the city of Milwaukee. We want the city of Milwaukee to be a better place. We want people that live in that area around that bank to know that they have access to capital.
Right.
And that's why, that's why we're there. That's why you talk about 100 years. Now, being 100 years, being a black bank in the city of Milwaukee, understanding the history of the city of Milwaukee, that is a feat and a challenge in itself.
Right.
100 years. That's a astounding achievement. And it all started because you had two people with enough gumption and initiative to think this thing out and to put it into operation and to get out there and do something.
Right.
And that's what we got to do, man. We got to get out there and do something. And so I'm excited about it. I'm excited about being on the board. I'm excited about what's going to happen in the next 100 years. You know why?
Why?
Because I'm a part of it, man.
There you go.
And that's important.
Right. Yeah, this is history in the making.
Yeah, it's a huge history. Mm-hmm. Milwaukee history, black folks history. It's just a good history.
Right. Steve, what do you want to say?
Just think about the charter itself as far as how that came to be. It wasn't until they put pressure on the government.
Yeah.
That's what made that happen, was the governor basically had to finally concede and give them a chance. That's all we ask for, is just a chance.
Yeah.
We don't need anybody's handouts. We are willing to do the work. Myself, Ernest, you, Dr. Fuller, we're all there for the task. We just need to be able to do business.
Yep.
So to think that back in the 20s, this family had the courage and the gumption to stand up and say, this is what we need to do to serve the underserved. That's the same mission that we have now.
Right.
I would love for more people to come in, set up appointments so we can have that same conversation to get people to be homeowners.
Right.
That's our number one goal and push right now. Is let's get you in the door. Let's schedule it, but let's see if we can have those conversations to get more people to be homeowners. We can talk about that later as far as what people are paying rent versus what a mortgage payment would look like. But that's, to me, once you get home ownership and you really understand the power and the flexibility that gives you, that could be life changing for not only your family but for generations to come. Home ownership and the equity that comes along with that is major. The tax breaks that come along with it, just the pride you take in owning the home and knowing that this is your house. You don't have to keep moving, year to year and just dealing with everything else that comes along with it.
And the generational wealth that gets passed down.
You can pass the house down.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's right.
Or you can borrow against the home once you get enough equity in that home. You can do things with that piece of property that you can never do just continually renting and falling into that cycle. That's why the mission is huge to try to help people get to become homeowners.
Right. Well, we had some turnover with our staff, and now we are almost fully staffed again, but we're still working on adding to the team. And so that made it a little bit of a challenge for a couple of months or so, just in terms of intaking new loan applications.
Right.
But right now, we want the message to be absolutely clear. Columbia is wide open and ready for business. You guys agree?
Agree with it 1,000%.
I think we've shown in the past 3-4 weeks that we're ready to roll right now. Let's go.
Yeah. I think we definitely have shown we bulked up, we got the right people on board. And so while I'm at it, let me give a shout out to the team.
Absolutely.
Starting with our fearless leader, Mr. Ernest Jones, who is the president, CEO, and chair of the board. Ernie, I hope you're listening. I think you're listening. So none of this would be possible right now if not for your strong leadership and your ability to attract quality individuals to your team who are willing to work hard to help execute this vision that we all have for Columbia. It matters to us and it mattered to me, but I'm telling you, Ernie's commitment and his passion for this bank, the sacrifice that I've seen him make, that is what inspired me to come and be a part of this.
There's so many times we have conversations and they're difficult conversations, but because me and him are able to communicate so openly, it's not always just because we're so close that we agree on it. We disagree a lot. All right. But at the end of the day, we hear what each other's trying to get across.
Right.
And that's the big picture when we're having those type of discussions.
Yeah.
Why do you feel that way? Why do you think that? And we have that talk. And at the end of the day, that's still my brother. So we're going to work it out.
Well, nobody goes from good to great without iron that sharpens iron, right? Not to use too many metaphors, but you get what I'm saying. It's good that you guys disagree.
Yeah.
Because then you're bringing different perspectives to the table. But the difference is that you're both mature enough, you're both confident enough, and you both respect each other enough that you'll listen to what each other has to say.
Yeah.
And that's what makes everybody better. Don't you agree, Doc Fuller?
I agree with that 1,000%. And when you look at the work that Attorney Jones has done with the bank, I've been there with him from the beginning also, because he and I kind of like came on the first time, and I told him, I said, you know what, Mr. President, you got to understand that you're where you are. I'm a pastor, and I kind of look at things from a spiritual perspective. I said, man, you never asked for any of this. I said, but the Lord put it in your lap. And so you really can't get out of it. You got to go with what the Lord gave you. And I said, not only that, I said, but when you look at your background and you look at the type of work you've done in the past and how you worked with these people before, I said, you are uniquely qualified to be at this bank at the point in history that this bank is at, man. God put you there. And you got to be wise enough, and he was wise enough to say it, that you got to be wise enough to be able to understand where God have you at now and do the best that you can to move this institution further into the 21st century.
That's right.
I mean, that's what you got to do.
That's what you got to do. And God provides the helpers, the
he
people
does.
by your side to help you do that. So, okay, it looks like it's time for us to go to a break. We will be right back after the break with more about Columbia Savings and Loan Association, 100 years old as of today. Welcome back to Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I am Attorney Coral Pleas, and I am so pleased to have in the studio with me this morning two of the members of the board of directors for Columbia Savings and Loan Association. Columbia turns 100 years old today. And in celebration of that, I have with me this morning Director Steve Moore and Director Dr. Mose Fuller. Welcome back from the break, you guys.
Hey.
I said before I was going to acknowledge the team because we got a whole new team of people there that are working really hard with us. And so I do want to acknowledge Danielle. And Danielle is a trooper because sadly she lost her little puppy yesterday.
Man.
So yeah, it was a tough day for her, but you know, she soldiered on and came in there this morning.
Praise
and
God for that.
yeah, and just getting everything together. But I know her heart is heavy because she did love her little dog, her little Buttercup.
Shout out to Danielle.
Yes, Danielle. And Douglas Clark is there holding it down with the security, and Yumika is holding down the teller area, Yumika Miller. So thank you everybody for holding everything down. So I have an opportunity to come in and do the radio show this morning. So thank you all. What I wanted to do is talk a little bit more about the founders of this bank on this momentous occasion of 100 years, Wilbur and Artie Halyard. Now, from what I understand, Wilbur was born in South Carolina.
Yep.
He wasn't born in the capital city of Columbia, but he did decide to ultimately name the bank Columbia anyway, based on the capital city of his home state. So he graduated from Morehouse College. This couple was born in the late 1890s. I want to say 96 and 98 respectively, Wilbur being a couple years older than Artie. She's from Georgia and she went to college there. He actually did as well. I'm not sure where they met or when they got married, but at some point in the early 1920s, they moved from the South up to the state of Wisconsin. So we know what Wisconsin can be like now.
Yeah.
Imagine wind back 100 years.
Right.
Yep.
And think about the environment they moved into.
Right.
And they moved to the city of Beloit. They both became active with the local chapter of the NAACP. And these were extraordinary human beings. They weren't your average couple because it seems that everything they touched, they took on a leadership role because they each had their turns being the president of the local chapter of the NAACP. And I believe that she was the first female person in that role. So that just leadership, that's what it was all about with those two. So they lived in Beloit and then they moved to Milwaukee. And part of the challenge was that Milwaukee had a district where there were a lot of thriving Black-owned businesses. There were like barber shops, there were funeral homes, there were just any different type of business that you could think of. But these people who were successfully running their businesses, earning good money, were not able to qualify, if you will, right, for a home loan with the traditional banks. And so Artie and Wilbur, God bless them for being visionaries. I think that's what you said,
That's
Dr.
what they
Fuller.
were.
Yeah, from the beginning, that they decided, well, all right, if you don't want to give us home loans to buy our homes, we'll start our own bank.
Right.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
I think even just going back to their education, I mean, to imagine yourselves going to an HBCU. I mean, HBCUs didn't even come around until after the Civil War. So there's context in that. And then adding on top of that, the fact that we're talking about a woman in the 20s and 30s running an NAACP, having a huge involvement with the bank from a leadership perspective, shows you just how driven they were.
Right.
And just how exceptional that is, because sometimes you get pushback from your own people.
Sure.
But when
Very
it's real,
true.
it's real.
Right.
And that shows you just how much of an influence, a positive influence, that not only he had, but she had as well, to truly contribute and run this thing.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so Attorney Coral, you know, when you look at the black banks were started because white banks didn't want to give money to black folks. The black church was started basically the same way because, people didn't want to worship together. You can't worship if you worship with us, you got to worship downstairs or something like that. And so they said, well, hey, we're not going to put up with that. We go out here and start our own church. And basically that's what happened. And so this is why when you look at 100 years about you talk about the tenacity and the boldness of these two individuals. These two, this husband and this wife, these innovators, these people that wanted to go out and make a difference. And look, we're not going to be pushed around. Nope. We're going to take a stand, and we're going to take a stand for right, and then we're going to take a stand for adding value to people, and we're going to take a stand for adding value to community. And they went out there and did it. And you know what? We are not that far from that today. We got to take a step. One of the things that a black bank, the only black bank in the city of Milwaukee, in the state of Wisconsin, should not be struggling for any accounts because it's in a community that is really a bank desert, if you will. You don't see many banks around here. You go out here a few blocks north here in Glendale and Whitefish Bay and places like banks are everywhere up and down Silver Spring. But you go down here where we are, where they need to be. And here's the thing about it. Black folks got money. They got money in these other banks. So I think that what we have to do, we have to focus like these two individuals did. They had an inward focus on what was happening with them, and they wasn't outside of the issue that they was dealing with. That was part of who they were also. And then the whole community, the whole people that was discarded as insignificant. You can put your money here, but we're not gonna we're not gonna let you use your money to get anything. You can deposit. And a lot of, and as I said, with the black church, it was like that. And even like right now, they took a chance on me as a church that was 2 years old. You have a lot of black churches in this community right now. They got a lot of money in these white institutions, and they can't even get loans to do anything. And so that's what we're up against. So we haven't come that far. We got to understand that we have power, and we can make a difference. And the reason that we can make a difference with the money that we have, and we're not poor, by the way, it's just what we do with our money. You know what I mean? If you organize your money and put your money where it can work, it can be a very powerful thing. And I think that's the only problem wrong is that if black folks knew what this bank could do for this community, man, they would be lined up to come. Mm-hmm. They would just literally be lined up to come because it's really has been a savior. I mean, that's huge. A savior in this community. For a lot of people, like you said, going back in the 50s when your granddad and had money in this bank. Even when I came in the late 90s, in the mid 90s, it was the same thing. It was hard for churches to get loans, and I knew for a fact that I wouldn't have got a loan for my church for 2 years. But Columbia Savings and Loan took a chance with me.
Access to capital and relationships.
Huge.
Relationships are huge in banking.
That's right.
You have the opportunity to come in, speak to somebody. We get to know you and learn your story. I say it all the time. Tell me your story. I understand people might be going through difficult times right now. It's not easy for anybody. But if we can work with you, we're going to work with you.
Right.
That's the bottom line. Things happen in life. It is what it is. So just come in, schedule an appointment, and let's have that discussion.
That sounds good. Right now we have a caller that would like to speak to us. Go ahead, caller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Attorney Coy. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning,
how you doing?
Columbia. Good morning, Milwaukee. Tyrone W. speaking. Good morning, Mr. Jermaine Carvey and the rest. Well, I just wanted to say this guy. I know you're up against the clock, but blessed and joyous birthday celebration. Another 100 and beyond to come to you. And God bless you, like Dr. Andrew Ward would say, God bless you. Have a good one. And that's what I want you to do. Bless 100 and beyond.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
great
you
day and
so
a wonderful
much.
weekend.
Thank you for your support.
Yep. Say hi to sister for me.
I sure will. Take care,
Love you.
Tyrone.
God bless.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yep, we always appreciate Tyrone and calls, and it's good. It's good motivation for me to have someone that listens regularly and calls in and it even thinks about my family. So thank you so much. Appreciate that. But yeah, you guys are making all of the right points with what you were saying.
I mean, even just that call, that's relationships, right?
Yeah.
That's how we build these type of things so that you feel comfortable coming into the bank so we can talk about it. We know you, you know us, and we're going to fight for you to make this thing work. I can't tell you how many times people just assume we can't help you because of your past. Well, no, let's talk about it. What's going on? And once we get past that, then we can figure out whether or not it's going to, be a viable decision or not. But I'll tell you this. We probably will give you a much more fair shake than a larger financial institution would, just because that's our mission. We're a mission-focused bank to make home ownership a reality.
Right.
So,
right. I did want to go back and say this too. When we were talking about the visionaries that started this bank, from what I've read, they started this bank with $10.
wow.
How do you start a bank with $10? How do you do anything with $10? Now, I know it was 100 years ago, but $10 was still $10.
Right.
But that's what they got started with. And, from hard work, pouring in, and quite honestly, not taking away.
Yep.
Because Wilbur was also an insurance agent, and I believe also worked in real estate. And so, eventually in real estate, I think that benefited the bank with him having those credentials. But Artie worked in retail, I believe at Goodwill. These are college educated people, but they humbled themselves, took the jobs that they needed to take to sustain themselves financially so that they could build Columbia for a good 10 years before they would ever take anything away.
Doesn't that sound pretty ironic?
It sure does.
I mean, how do you start a bank with $10? I think you do that by the community embracing you.
Right.
You need help. You need, depositors to come in, place the funds in the bank long enough so that you can invest the money.
Yeah.
Right.
I think a lot of times people get confused when you see people making contributions to the bank. Those are deposits.
Yeah.
We have to pay interest on that money. It's not like it's just going into some coffer where that just disappears. No, we have to pay interest on that. We appreciate all of our bank partners. We need more from them as well, but let's always just make sure that we're clear on that. So the community embrace them, I think, is the big recipe for why you can be successful starting a financial institution with $10. I really don't think there's any other way to get around that. But I mean, I just think about, they made it through the Great Depression, the riots in the 60s, the turmoil in the 80s when oil prices went crazy and the interest rates were 18, 19% with good credit.
Yeah.
2008.
Yeah.
And here we are now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just so much to that history that it really needs to be applauded and celebrated, on top of the various leaders that have, helped along the way, from the Halyards to Mr. Gary to Mr. Jones that we have now. It's a lot of help, and without God, none of it would be possible.
Right.
Amen. Doc Fuller, what do you want to say?
Yeah, that's my point too. When you look at it, without a doubt, this couple was a godly couple, and not only were they godly, but they were actually great leaders also.
Mm-hmm.
They was extraordinary leaders, and as I mentioned before, they had vision. They could visualize a city where there would be more black folks, because during that time it wasn't that very many of us here. And then when you look at when you study, I read this book we call The Making of Milwaukee, and they had black folk delegated to a certain area, and it was usually down by Walnut and going downtown, and they didn't come too far above Walnut, and that's why this institution was in the beginning. So they knew how many black folks was in the city, and they knew where they was going to be living. They knew the number of lawyers that they had, the number of barbers that they had, the number of whatever kind of calling that they had. They knew it. The city leaders did. And so these individuals, man, when you think about their capacity to lead and how they view the growth of the black population in this community, and they could take $10, although that $10 don't seem like a lot, but during that time, on any level, $10 was a nice little piece of change. When I was coming up down south in the 50s, man, and $10 was a lot of money. You could do a lot with 10. Black folk, and that's the thing about black people. They are so energetic, man, and they are just so creative in their drive to survive. And that's what you had during this time. You had black folks that was up on the wall, so to speak. And they was up on the wall and they wasn't coming down until they got some stuff done. And that's what these folks did. They stayed there, man. And that's why you have a Columbia Savings and Loan. You have folks now, the leaders after that. You have to have the tenacity to stay there. When the hardship comes, you got to fight through the hardship. When the disappointments come, you got to still stay up on the wall. When folks quit, you still got to hang on in there. Because some people is not going to go along with the vision. They're there to get what they're going to get. And if they can't get what they're going to get, then they're going to leave. And so that's why when you build an institution like Columbia Savings and Loan, you bought into the thing, man. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that Attorney Jones is bought into the bank. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Steve. These guys are bought into the mission. We're here because we're bought into the mission. We're not here because what we can get out of the bank, but it's the mission of the bank to do one thing, like the hell you said, to help people.
Yep.
That's the bottom line.
That's exactly right. And because the leaders have bought into the mission, that encourages other people to come in and take some things by the helm. Like somebody like me, that's why I got involved.
Now see how hard you work, man. Yeah. You work hard at that bank,
Yeah, I
every day
do my best.
I'm ready to get the collection plate because Bill over here preaching.
I know. I was gonna say, we bring a pastor on the show. He's in the pulpit right now, but he's telling the truth.
I'm reaching in my pocket right now.
But that's what this bank is all about, though, man. It's mission, and I know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll what I wanted to also just talk a little bit about, I'll circle back because it looks like we have a caller that's calling in now, so we don't have people holding on. So caller, please go ahead.
Yes. Excuse me for being from the old school, but I remember a long time ago, Columbia Savings Loans. I remember when they used to have factories here. Remember back in the days, we used to have factories here. A.O. Smith, L. Chambers and stuff like that. I remember Columbia Savings Loans when black people came here from the South, wherever the case may be. The Columbia Savings Loans, I'm not all that familiar with, but I appreciate everybody being there, telling the truth about it, and share, and thank you for sharing the history. But one thing I'm going to say straight up, when my father, came from Korea, came here, worked at A.O. Smith. He went to Columbia Savings Loans, and he said, I need something to get me a house or something like that, an apartment, somewhere to stay to raise my kids and my grandmother, his mother, right? But Columbia Savings and Loans, excuse me for being all over the map. But only thing I want to say, thank you so very much for being there. Because I remember back in the days, you're talking about 100 years and stuff like that. Come on now. When black people couldn't go nowhere, get nothing, even when we was working in the factories and stuff like that.
That's right.
We couldn't do it.
That's right.
But when Columbia Savings and Loans came around, the only thing did y'all used to be on North Avenue, Frontier back in the days?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Steve. You can
Yeah,
answer.
that's the old
Okay,
location
so
that you're talking about.
excuse me. So,
Yep.
so what I wanted to say, thank you so very much, everybody, for being there. Because you know I ain't lying. You know I ain't lying.
Nope, I know
And
you're
so,
not. And
hmm
you thanking us for being here. I'm thanking you for calling. And I remember the factories. My dad was in Korea too in World War
hmm
II, and
hmm
definitely worked at A.O. Smith for a season as well. So
hmm
I can relate and I understand exactly what you're saying. So we appreciate
But
your call.
and thank you. But before you hang up, I just want to say one more thing before you hang up, okay? If I
Please
may.
go right ahead.
That's because of, cause like I said, when I came back home from Vietnam, before I went to college and stuff like that for a minute, I just want to say thanks for Columbus Saves and Long for watching out for my dad, working at A.O. Smith back in those days. Because that helped. That helped. Because we didn't have nowhere else to go, to be quite honest with you. But thank Columbus Saves and Long. I just want to say thank you for that. Excuse me for being short like that, but I just want to say thank you so very much for being there, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for telling the butt naked truth.
Thank you too. You
Yeah,
take
thank you for
care.
that, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. You have a good rest of
Okay.
your week.
You do the same, and thank you.
Yeah, so I think that, the one thing that I'll say and follow up to that call is just really what we've been talking about here today, that, the existence of this bank matters.
No.
The furtherance of this bank matters. And we've all bought into that mission, and we've all poured in time, effort in order to make sure that that comes to pass.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're dealing with real people. That's the one thing that we always get caught up in the numbers. I'm a banker by trade, but I always have to remind myself we're dealing with real people. This impacts families. We don't take that lightly at all. He said his father grew up working in the factory. Mine did too. So we're dealing with. We can relate, and the joy that we get when we can close on a loan is absolutely just amazing. It's an amazing feeling when you can tell someone, we got a closing date, you're going to be a homeowner. There's nothing better than that.
And yeah, and brother Steve, and that's investment in, not only is it benefiting the person now, but that's legacy building stuff. That's something that you can pass on down the line to family, and knowing that you can help build wealth, and that's what banking institution does. And then you're looking at the history of Columbia Savings and Loan, and going back to why it was started. Black people that was coming to Milwaukee, that was growing, the North was growing, the city of Milwaukee was growing, more of us was coming, but as we said before, they didn't have access to the capital. And if you don't have access to capital, you're not going to be able to do very much.
That's the name
Can't
of the
buy a
game.
home, can't get a car, but you're working a good job.
Right.
A.O. Smith. I mean, they had all kind of factories in this community in the 40s and 50s and 60s. I came here in 69 and they still had a remnant of those factories that was here that hadn't disappeared yet.
Yeah.
And then they still had black folk making good money. And then at the same time, it was still hard to access money from other
Exactly.
institutions.
So when we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit more about Columbia, the 100 years, and we're going to tell you about the celebration that we have planned for the 100-year centennial. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I am here in the studio today with directors from the Board of Directors of Columbia Savings and Loan Association because we are celebrating 100 years of Columbia Savings and Loan as of today. Welcome back, Steve and Doc Fuller.
Hey.
All right.
So when we were on break, Steve, I told you that I was going to ask you to talk just a little bit about the celebration that we have coming up on October 24th. And I'll let you talk about that, a little bit of the details of that event. And if people are interested, how they can go about contacting us to get a ticket.
Yeah, so on October 24th this year, we're going to have a celebration at the Trade Hotel. We have a separate relationship with them. It's a beautiful new hotel, downtown Milwaukee, right across the street from the Fiserv Forum. If anyone is interested in attending, you can certainly call down to the bank. Otherwise, you can email us at centennial@columbiasla.com. Again, that's centennial@columbiasla.com.
Give people the bank number too, Steve, just in case. 414-374-0486.
Yeah, I knew the last four.
Yep, 414-374-0486. You can give a call there if you'd like information about how to get tickets for our centennial celebration.
Yeah, we really want to make it an event, make it beautiful, something to remember. Working with some of the partners as far as, those that want to be, involved as sponsors or anyone that just wants to contribute. Certainly just reach out and let us know, and we can, have that conversation and figure that out. I'm excited for it because it is, again, a really great opportunity to celebrate the history of where we've come, where we currently stand, and where we're moving to in the future. And it's just a night to, I think, bring all of that together.
Right. I agree. Doc Fuller, what do you want to say about that?
Well, I would encourage the community to come on down and just be a part of the bank.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for core investors. Put your money in the bank. The bank is strong. Great leadership at the bank. As we move further into the 21st century, the bank is going to be that beacon of hope as relates to Black people in this community, in this city, being able to access capital. Columbia Savings and Loan is that institution. So come on out and be a part of it.
Absolutely.
And come on down and meet the new team of people who are there.
I think everybody needs to come on down and mess with Mika and Danielle and say, I'm sure your brother's going to love that. Douglas, get ready. But no, seriously, we need that support from the community, not just the community, but statewide. I mean, we lend and do business with everybody. I know we're a Black-owned bank, but we are ready to do business with any and everyone that's available and ready to get serious about home ownership and saving your money the right way.
Amen.
All right. Well, I guess that is enough said. We're looking forward to the next 100 years. And thank you both for being here today.
No, shout out to you, Coral, for having us come down. If it was anybody else, I wouldn't do things like this. It's not in my nature. I like to be in the background. I'm kind of like Ernie on that, that aspect, since he and I are identical but complete opposite at the same time.
I know, that's what's so interesting about you too. So I do appreciate that.
To talk, that.
Oh yeah. But you're right, Steve. I read people, and I know your instinct is to be a natural introvert, but you flicked that switch and came through for me today. So
you got it.
I really appreciate it. But I want people to see how smart the people are that are in charge of this bank right now, how running it. That's no insult to anybody in the past, because it's their smarts that brought us this far.
Absolutely.
But this is what's taking us into the future. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening.